Thanks, Steve. Okay, okay.
Is it all right to record your voice?
Pardon?
Is it all right to record your voice?
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. My name is John, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm just so grateful to be sober and glad to be here tonight. I love my life in AA, and I came here. I don't know how long ago it was, maybe 6 months ago, or the same thing happened. I came in, only instead of Steve, it was Nancy. Somebody had, said, "Oh yeah, I'll be there," and weren't, and then it was the same kind of deal. So here I am, and I just want to say, man, when I got to AA, my family life was, everything that had mattered to me was in the direction of going away. And I just really liked your pitch. Maybe I'm not supposed to do this, but I liked your pitch, and it's a humbling deal to really, for something like, to want a family life or to want something to happen. And the way that I have lived, the way I was living, what I had done had just destroyed everything that really mattered to me. And I want you to know that I've been sober a long time, and I've had a reassembled family life. And if that can happen for me, it can happen for you too, man. Dave and I were talking about that on the way down here about just how deeply grateful, we are for, being reassembled in a family. And I'm not shy about talking about that because it's really been important to me. I got really sick about 15 months ago, and my family has been so there for me. And these were people I hated and blamed, everything on. Like, I had an ex-wife who is now a designated liver transplant caregiver, should it come to that. And I hated Roxanne with everything in me. And she has stepped up to the plate and said, "Well, I'll be the one to help you with your medicines and get you to the doctor and all this kind of stuff." And see, that's just the thing about AA. It can take this wrong direction, this destroyed life, and it can make it go in that direction. And I love that about AA, man. But it didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen without me admitting that I was in way over my head with that. And it started with alcohol. When I got here, I couldn't not drink, and uh, uh, I couldn't not drink, and uh, and I was scared to death to drink, because when I drank, I know this is an AA meeting, so I won't really say a whole lot about drugs, but when I drank, it wasn't just the drinking. I would start, I would go off the deep end and be unable to stop until I got really sick or was arrested, or, things of that nature. And that went on for years. I first came to AA in 1979. I'd been arrested in rapid succession 4 times for drunk driving, and I got in a lot of trouble. But back then, they didn't put you in prison like they do now. And the fourth time that happened, those arrests, by the way, happened in the period of about, my memory's a little bit fuzzy on some of these things, but it was in the period of about 5 months. So, and after the last one, I was in a lot of trouble, and uh, I just, it was like I was afraid to leave the house for what would happen, and uh, and then the house and the woman that I was married to and the kids, they were very young. All that went away, and in the end, um, Bill describes kind of like the lone wolf deal, man. That's how it was. I was completely alone, and I hated myself. I hated what my life had become, and I hated who I was. I despaired of getting any of that stuff straightened out, and it is now all this time later, and here I am, man. And if that can happen for me, it can happen for you too, man. Um, I've heard people say in AA that the newcomer is the most important person here. I don't really agree with that. My view on this is that we're all equal. We're all here on an equal deal, man. We're all. I mean, I don't know why anybody else is here tonight, but it's important that I know why I'm here. And I don't think that Dave's suffering has any more weight than Nancy's. I mean, we're all here, and so I just am. I just feel so grateful to be sober tonight, man. And had I known that I was going to be asked to talk tonight, I would have maybe thought about this a little more. So I'm really glad that it was just kind of last minute like this. I'll say this about, maybe I should have started by saying this. I got sober April 30, 1989. That's when I got sober this time. I came to AA 10 years prior to that. And that those drunk drivings and all of that, I stayed sober because I had to go to court and sign in and had to go to meetings and things like that. That lasted for about 3 months, and I was in a meeting and I heard somebody talk, and it was so it was so pathetic what this person shared about, and I thought, God, what a fucking loser. Pardon me, I know I'm not supposed to swear. No, but what a I mean, I was like, this is pathetic, man. And I left that deal and I went out and drank. And in my case, I drank nonstop every day. I didn't draw a sober breath for 10 years when I came back in 1989. And that I just took, that's how it was for me, man. It was just, I just could not stop drinking, and I ruined everything that really mattered to me. So when I got here, I had some really bad ideas that, in spite of being frightened and hating myself, I would sit and I'd come to I was got locked up in a detox center, which morphed into this treatment deal, and I was in there, and I had a counselor in there, by the way. Her name was Marty McCready. What a piece of work she was. Every day she would say to me, well, you're never going to make it. And I'd say, and I noticed that I was the only person that she said that to. And I was like, hey, man, I don't think you're really supposed to say stuff like that to a guy whose life is completely fucked up here and trying to get it back together. Come on, man, give me a little slack here, man. And she would say, she was just unrelenting about that. And I ended up in that place, which was all. I'm not saying that wasn't helpful, but that is not how I got sober. That helped me get physically separated from drinking. But what happened for me was that I ended up from that, and then there were meetings that came in there. There people, the AA had meetings that they would bring into, if you're getting into your service life here. There's a whole service structure that's involved in going into prisons and treatment centers and these kinds of things. And there was such a deal going on at this place, and so that all of that helped me get physically separated from alcohol. But I didn't. It didn't. There was going to be a lot more to come. But I am grateful for all that. And the reason I mention that is because there was a guy on one of these meetings that I went to in that place. There was a guy who told this story. Larry H. was his name, and he was in the Navy, and he drank. I could tell right away when he got up to the podium and started talking. I knew right away this guy drank like I did, because he would start drinking, and it would stop, and he would come, and he told this story, which I'm going to retell right now. He started drinking. He was in the Navy, and he came out of a blackout, and he was in Japan, and he didn't know how he had gotten there. And I thought, I know that guy, because I never woke up out of a blackout in Japan, but I did wake up one time in Detroit, Michigan, having no idea how I got there, and just stuff like that. But when I heard that guy tell that story, I knew I knew right then and there that there were two of us. I knew that there was another person who had drank like I had, who had no intention of starting out that binge and getting separated from his kids and his wife. And I mean, I don't know if Larry was married, but I mean, I'm talking about me. I had no intention when I would take that first drink to end up like that. And those are the kinds of things that happened to me over and over and over again. I was uh, I think I was 32 when I got sober. I was thereabouts. I was 32 or 34 when I got sober. I've been sober 36 years in AA. I got sober this time April 30, 1989, and I've been sober since then. And so from that treatment center, I ended up in meetings of AA, and I started hearing. It wasn't at all every meeting, but I would go to some of these meetings, and I would hear what now I know is the real voice of AA. And I'm not here to judge anybody's uh, application of the steps, or how they're doing what they're doing. But I know that sometimes when I would hear people talk, and they would talk about this inability to stop drinking, or the inability, if they were stopped, this inability to not just think about that, this obsession of the mind. And I would hear people talk about that, and then they'd tell these stories of things that had happened to them, and I thought, that's the exact picture of me, man. You know how, like, when you listen to an inventory. I've listened to many. Part of my sober life has been to sponsor people. I've listened to lots and lots of fifth steps, and it has never failed when I well, I resent Bob because he wears black shoes and he thinks he's smarter than me, or whatever it is, and this affects and then here's what I've got to do with it. That kind of, after about 10 hours of that, it has never failed once that I cannot wait to fucking get out of there and go love on my family. Or, you know what I mean? Like, it's I hear and see the very picture of me in these people. And I started seeing that in the meetings that I went to. And I eventually moved to Seattle. I was, I was like 6 months sober or something like that. I got that treatment center, and those drunk drivings and all that happened out in the Midwest. And I was well into this deal about getting divorced. Roxanne, who is now my ex-wife, who I had Thanksgiving dinner with 2 days ago. Um, uh, uh, she told me that she was moving to Seattle. So, I moved to Seattle. I had two kids. My family life, those kids really meant something to me. And I moved here. And so, this thing about coming to AA, and I just went to a ton of meetings here. It's how I discovered AA. That's also how I learned Los Angeles. That's how I learned San Diego. It's by going around where all the meetings were. And that was how I kind of learned the city. But I came here, and I was going to all these meetings, and I ended up kind of out in a lot of Ballard meetings, and I met a guy there. I met the guy who turned out to be my first sponsor, and that guy Man, I'll never be able to do for another person what that guy did for me. But Dave knew him. His name was Jerry. He lived in a school bus. On the surface of it, he kind of looked like a fucking loser. He was kind of fat like me. And, he was, yeah, he was, I mean, I know for a fact he stored urine and big milk jugs underneath his bed in the back of he lived in a Bluebird school bus. And I thought, there were things about him that didn't really seem right to me, but there were things about him when I would hear him talk in meetings that, man, that guy, you know how I said about that thing with Larry when I heard Larry talk that it was the very first time I knew there were two of us? Well, I could say that about Jerry kind of, you know, tenfold. Like when that guy talked, man, I knew that guy, uh, and when I met him, he was 30 years sober. He had sobered up in a penitentiary down in Southern California. And, so what happened was, I'll kind of put this on fast forward because what happened was I met with that guy. It wasn't every day, but I met with him multiple times a week. And because I knew where he parked that bus, he liked to go out to Shill Shoal out there, I guess you'd call that a marina, but kind of out at the very end. And there were some trees out there, and he loved to park his bus out there. And he would kind of pull up. So there was this one tree that had a bench by it, and it kind of shaded his bus so it didn't get real hot. I knew that's where I would, that's I would go there, and he would read to me, and that's what he did. He read to me, and uh, I okay. Well, I'm gonna say this is for you, but really it's for me and for everybody else in here. I felt so. I felt like I was too far gone. I just felt like that I just didn't, it wasn't that I didn't believe in AA. It's that I felt so screwed up as a person. And I've unfortunately found out that getting separated from alcohol, man, is just the beginning of the deal. Uh, in my case, I can see Dave smirking at me. In my case, it goes way beyond, for me, it's had to go way beyond that. And that was a terrible eye opener, I'll tell you that. But anyway, uh, Jerry had a way about talking to me that in all those years that he had worked with me, I never once felt like he judged me. These are the things that really attracted me to him. I knew that he knew from his own personal experience, what this, what the big book calls, what Silkworth referred to as the allergy of the body, and this obsession in the mind. That guy, I knew he knew that, and he was so beautiful. I mean, now I can say this, but at the time when he would do it, it's it it nobody had ever talked to me like this, and he would say things like, I am a grand champion liar. I can lie to anybody about anything. I wish that wasn't true, but it is. And I would be telling something, to this guy. He'd say, for example, "Hey, how are you doing?" "I'm fucking doing great, man. How are you?" And then I'd make up some story, and he would say to me, "Why do you feel like you have to lie to me?" And I think, oh, it's one of those things, man. You shouldn't say stuff like that to people because there was no way to eke out from underneath that whatever you call that, that gaze, that piercing deal. And it was a spiritual thing, man. He knew that as soon as I started talking, I was lying. He knew that, man, and he knew that from firsthand personal experience. And So anyway, man, that guy read the book to me. That's what happened. It's not, you know, I don't. I kind actually at this point in my sober life, I'm kind of turned off by the dramatic deal up on the podium and all that. It was a very simple, straightforward deal. I got taken through. He read to me, and when there were things to do, I tried my very best to do them. I knew from that ruthless beating with alcohol that one of the most, and I'm obligated to say something, especially to you. I'm obligated as somebody who's been sober in AA for a while here. Uh, um, the just the things that I had been through and the inability to get out from underneath them, I needed something greater than myself to solve that problem. And then all the other things that I've learned that this goes way beyond just this needing to get separated from yes, I need to get physically separated from alcohol, but what was I going to do about this lying and all the break-ins at my parents' house and all these things that I felt so terrible about and this way that I treated other people. And I'm actually glad to say this tonight, man. I have been reading. I'm on a I was going to say kind of a kick, but I don't mean it like that disrespectfully. But I'm reading step 6 and 7 every day. I out of the 12 and 12. I've been doing this for a while now because there are things in myself all these years later from this getting separated, physically separated from alcohol. I still have things in me that I'm not able to solve, and one of them is judging other people. I'll tell you, man, of all the things that I just that stuff has not been set right in me. I go to meetings. I came in here tonight. Okay, truth be known, I came in here tonight. I come into meetings and I think, I can not this again, or oh no, that guy's cheering, or I don't want to drive over to West Seattle for this meeting, or all that kind of stuff, or just I mean I could yeah and you know what's great about AA? Everybody's sitting in here tonight, whether you guys want to admit it to me or not. I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. The deal where we judge others, and I have found that to be such a crippling handicap. And my point about saying stuff like that is that I needed AA over time. I have realized that I need AA and the steps and believing that God can and will remove me from these crippling defects. I need that as much as I needed Him to help me with getting separated from alcohol. I do not, uh, when you say something like this in AA, there oftentimes people come up and kind of try and straighten you out. And I can appreciate that. God knows I've tried to straighten out a million people around here because they didn't understand things correctly and so on. But I don't really believe in myself. I don't really believe that I can solve my own problems. But I believe that this relationship that I have had to develop, not out of, that I've had to develop, that is what's going to get me separated from, um, judging other people. That's what's going to get me. That's what gets me down the road. I kind of say it that way. I think everybody would understand if I said it that way. And I used to be that. I used to, coming back to Jerry. Jerry used to talk about how he was sober because of grace, and I used to think, okay, well, do you have to? I mean, do we have to say it that way? Do we have to, kind of always put that? While that may be true, do you have to say that you're so powerless to get these things straightened out that you got to rely on God? Do I actually have to say it that way? Because I thought it sounded, I thought it sounded, it didn't sound, it just didn't sound like, I mean, my ego uh, resisted that. And now, I mean, no disrespect when I say it this way, but now, I mean, you guys are free to think what you want. I love that about AA. People are free to think and say and do whatever they want here. In my case, I'm not able to solve my own problems, and I think that relying on myself time and time and time again here has shown me that I fall way short. And now I want to tell a very recent story about an amends that I had that was, it was terrible, but it was also beautiful. I have a son who, my oldest son, his name is James, and he lives in San Francisco, and he's got a woman. He's been with Kimmy about I'm gonna say about 6 years, and they were gonna have a baby in January, and I'm sure they're gonna. He told me, in fact, when they told me that she was pregnant, he told me that he was going to ask her to marry. So they're well on their way, those guys. so so James has this apartment, which used to be mine, down in San Francisco. He has moved in, and it's like all his place and everything. And so I mentioned that I got sick. I was diagnosed with liver cancer about 14 months ago, and it's been a major fucking bummer. I know I'm supposed to maybe not say stuff like that, but it's been fucking horrible to go through. And I took treatment down in San Francisco at UCSF Medical Center because I know some of the people down there. It's a really great liver disease treatment center. And I used to work down there with those on that team. And so I know something about it. So anyway, I've been through a couple of major surgeries and all this stuff. And James, my son, has bent over backwards to take care of me. That guy, I'm a guy who likes to sit up here and talk. And I got some people in my family life, my daughter, my ex-wife, my son. I've got some people who are, I look at you like this. I look at Nancy, I look at Dave like this. People who are maybe not so concerned about talking as they are about actually making a demonstration. And James has been one of those kind of people. And so James was, he would call me an Uber from the airport to get to his house, and then he would come right out and he would get the suit. It's just like that kind of stuff, like a really dutiful, loving son. And I just was so grateful for all that. Well, that went on for a while, and then this deal, Kimmy gets pregnant. It's a big deal for them to tell me. I think it's wonderful news, and I have a daughter who just had a baby 6 months ago. So the family life is growing. It's just really beautiful. And then a couple of months after that, Kimmy tells James, and then James has to come to me. And just imagine how awkward this must have been for him. And James comes to me and he says, I have 56 seconds left.
No, you got it.
Okay.
Let's see how much.
Because I want to finish the story. I'm sorry I'm taking so long. So James says to me, "Hey man, Dad, I need to talk to you." And I said, "Oh, okay." I figured he was going to tell me what a great dad I was or something like that. He pulls me aside, man, and he says, "Listen, I don't want you to take this wrong, but Kimmy is pregnant and having a baby, and this apartment is not big enough for all of us. And so you're going to have to fucking beat it." And that was basically how he said it. And so one of the things that's going on down in San Francisco is I'm on a liver transplant list. And so if you have the surgery down there, you got to then you got to stay down there because they fine tune your medicines and all this kind of stuff. And it was going to be a heavy lift. It was a small place. James had agreed to be one of my caretakers, like Roxanne had. And then Kimmy comes along and says, "Hey, whoa, man, I'm having a baby and this place isn't big enough. And really, quite frankly, I don't want to, that's just too much for me." And you know what I did? I hate to say this about myself, but I'm a grand champion. I, everything inside me, I just got so bitter towards her. I just was so embittered by her. I felt like you kicked me to the curb when I need you most. And you can imagine what I'm capable of in my mind. And then I started kind of not treating her properly. I didn't ever say, "You fucking horrible person," but I said, I was just not very nice. I was cold and so on and so forth. And and then there was a what do you call it? What's it called when you have a baby shower? There was a baby shower, and I went down there, and this was a really big deal to James and Kimmy, and I went down there, and I made a point of not talking to Kimmy at all for 4 hours. She'd come my way, and I'd kind of go off the other way, and I felt so justified. And I have a daughter in AA who's 10 years sober, and at one point Hannah came up to me and she said, "Hey, I think you're on the wrong track here, man. You're not this." Now I love Hannah for this. Hannah said, "Well, I'm not here to tell you how to act or what to do, but you're going to regret this. He needs your help." And I forgot to say that one of the things that James said to me it was not when they told me they were pregnant, but shortly thereafter, he said, "Dad, I'm so afraid of having a baby. I know you've been around because I'm a nurse. I've been around a lot of all kinds of newborn stuff." He said, "I know you know a lot about that, and I'm so glad that you can help me. Dad, I need your help." Like that. He said stuff like that to me, and I thought, and I didn't fucking care about any of that, man. I was like, "Kimmy, you are a cold-hearted bitch." And what happened was, by having that bitterness and that animosity in me towards her, it was also really hurting James. And Hannah said this to me. I came back up here. I stayed just as soon as I could, I got on a flight and came back up here. I wanted nothing to do with them. I came back up here, and in my dumpy little apartment, when I got back, I realized, man, I, I mean, like sometimes people in AA, they like Hannah, what Hannah did, or a sponsor or somebody would say, "Hey, I think you might want to rethink this kind of deal that you're kind of the way you're thinking here or something." That happened all alone in my apartment. God spoke to me inside my heart about what I was doing, and I'll tell you, man, it was so. I realized. So you know what I did? I here's what I did. I called. I talked to this. I've met this guy named Robert. He's a longtime sober guy. He's up at the Phoenix Club, and my sponsor died in June, so I've been kind of using this guy as a sponsor. I called him up. I wrote some inventory. I read it to him, and then I made appointment to go down and see, and I had a talk with Kimmy, and I said, "Well, listen, here's what I said." This was my amend step to her. I said, "Well, listen, uh, I want to know if there's anything that I can do to help you here with this pregnancy. I have not been. I have been. Admittedly, I'm afraid about what's happening here with my health, but that does not license to act like this. And I know that you're aware of it. and I'm ready to do whatever I could do that you would allow to try and make this right. And the problem with saying something like that to somebody is they say, I mean, what happens if they say, all right, well, give me fucking $5,000? It's like, oh no, that was a joke. But you guys know what I mean. I mean, for those people who have crossed the threshold of walking up to somebody, making the appointment, being clear on what your harm is, and saying, what do I need to do to make this right? And I have to say that things have not gone, I mean, as far as I can see, there's kind of really no appreciable change in Kimmy's attitude towards me. But wow, man, has there been a rearrangement inside me about her? Here's what I saw. She is a first-time mother. She's 40 years old and afraid something's gonna, the baby's gonna come out with a flipper arm or something like that. Uh, all this kind of stuff. She's scared, and I missed the opportunity to be helpful and understanding and kind of smooth the waters with that. And those are the kinds of things that AA has done for me. I would rather tell the truth about how kind of messed up I can get here than paint some picture where I'm, poster child of AA. And to tell you the truth, I can't really, it's very hard to listen to that stuff anymore because in my case, man, I'm just not that. I am somebody who nearly killed themselves drinking themselves to death. And then I come here knowing I can't solve my own problems. I get introduced to the steps. I've been trying to use them for a long time. I've worked with other people. I've been involved in groups, blah, blah, blah. And yet still I hit these spots, man, where I wake up and see myself and think, what am I fucking doing? And even that's like, I'm fooled that I can kind of, even with that, I'm fooled by thinking that I can solve my own problem. You know what I mean? Like there's a line in the book that says, well, the alcoholic suffers from the delusion that he can, if he only, manages well, that he's gonna, and I have that, and that's not something that, I mean, that looking that deep down inside yourself for where you're off the beam with other people and freely admitting it, that's the thing here, isn't it? We're supposed to be honest about who we are and what we're up against. And in my case, I hate to break it to the new guy, but it goes way beyond this alcohol thing. But that's where I had to, it had to start there. It had to start with me having this, being unable to not drink, and then to realize how, like in this case of this deal with Kimmy, how fucking, just how off the beam I was. And I don't mean to overly say the story about all that, but it's just, I have these reminders in the sober life, man, that I'm not cured. I've got a reprieve. I've got a daily reprieve. So I could talk until next Friday. So I'm going to stop here. I want to say something. I know you're against this, and I'm sure Nancy and Dave are, but I single those people out here tonight because these are three people that have helped me so much in the sober life. I've looked up to these people. Dave and I have done a lot of step work together, and without these kinds of bonds here, man, I would have never made it. It really is. It's this God deal. It's this spiritual deal, and it's these beautiful bonds with other people here. And it's those two things together. They don't exist independent of each other. So I'm just really deeply grateful for that. And go team. That's my pitch, man. Okay.